Welcome to the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowdin, where we unpack the strategies and solutions that make localization fast, scalable, and efficient. I'm your host, Stefan Huyghe. Good morning. We're here with Jaap van der Meer in a very special edition of the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowdin. It's a beautiful sunny day in Dallas, Texas, and I believe it's rainy in the Netherlands. What a big surprise, Jaap. Welcome to the show. Jaap is the CEO and founder of TAUS. What else can we say about you, Jaap? There's so much to say. Maybe introduce yourself real quick to our audience.
No, you have it right. I'm the founder, CEO of TAUS. Started TAUS 20 years ago, 2005 here in the Netherlands. But yeah, of course, there's a whole history before that. But if we dive into that, then we could use the whole
My
to
beard
do
will
that.
my
So
beard,
take
beard
that.
will go gray at that point. We're here, of course, this morning to talk about Epic, the new quality paradigm that Taos is launching, and its integration with the Crowdin platform. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get to this niche market of quality estimation? Give us the background.
Yeah, that was almost a kind of a coincidence. Most people know TAUS for the think tank we are, but also probably for the massive volume of data that TAUS has collected since, well, very soon after we started the company, 2008, in fact. We started collecting translation memory data from many stakeholders in the industry, initially really to help everybody build more better performing machine translation engines. Um, and then, we had all this data and, we were advocating the value of data, but we were figuring internally, trying to find out how can we ourselves use this data to build a good product. Now, the obvious choice was to launch our own machine translation system, but since we were the provider of data to machine translation builders, we didn't want to compete with our customers. So it was a coincidence. About 3 years ago, Uber came to Taos and said, "Hey, guys, do you know how to build a quality estimation model? Can you help with that?" Now, we knew about that as a research topic, but nobody had ever built a product around it yet. But our team said, "Sure, we can do it. We have the data to power these models, so let's try." And we started working with Uber for a couple of years to build a platform that could help them. And it's interesting because it's the reverse use case of what we do today. Uber wanted to filter out all the bad MT so that it wouldn't, that was for the customer support platform, so that it wouldn't end up on the in the apps from the users, the drivers and the customers. And so anyway, that's the history. That's how we got into this, and now we've started rolling it out to the localization industry for many people in our industry to use it to filter out good MT so that it doesn't require post editing anymore.
And how do you specifically differentiate yourself in this busy landscape of lots of competitive software releases nowadays?
Well, there is the Gartner. It's very interesting. Gartner published a report in September on this kind of emerging market niche, translation quality estimation, TQE as they call it. And they identified TAUS as one out of two pure play providers. So um, all the other QE features that you hear about in the market are indeed just features on bigger platforms in TMS systems, or so you can't access them as a standalone service, as a standalone technology. So that's a big differentiator. But also the different tools work differently. Sometimes there's a feature on the platform is just sort of an at a distance kind of measurement. but ours is much more sophisticated. It works, similar to machine translation models with transformers and semantic similarity. So it's a very sophisticated kind of application.
And if I can ask you a provocative question right out of the gate, if a QE model can detect errors in a translation, can we not simply train the machine translation engines in the first place to not make these mistakes anymore? And do we need a separate QE model from the MT models? Why is there a need for that? Yeah.
That's a good question, and a lot of people ask that question. And if you maybe you remember, Stefan, we were both at the TAUS conference in Salt Lake City, and we had a bunch of experts there on stage, and who were asked the same question. Among others, Philip Keun, everybody knows him as the inventor of statistical MT. And no, the point is, the MT systems are trained for a different purpose. The QE models are trained strictly for that purpose, to detect errors in the output from LLMs or MT engines. And the answer from that panel was, I think, unanimously like, no, this is not something you can train an MT model to do in the first place. You just like maybe you could compare it to the classical TPE, translation, proof, editors, different functions in the workflow to check other people's work. And so that's the simplest way maybe of explaining it. But I think there is definitely clearly a distinctive role for a QE model in the workflow.
Yeah, and Epic combines quality estimation and automatic post editing. What led Taos to merge these two functions into one product, would you say?
Yeah, it's kind of the obvious thing because with QE, and by the way, we don't use LLMs, for the quality estimation. We train our own models. It's self-hosted by TAUS. So that whole end is managed internally by TAUS. And typically we identify that 50% of the output from the MT engine or from the LLM is good to go. So you can auto approve that. And the other 50% then still needs to be sent to humans, post editors, to improve it. That's a big saving. That's 50% efficiency improvement, cost saving, time saving. But what about that 50% that didn't, get over the threshold of the QE score? Now, that's obvious these days. You can send that to a large language model and ask for an improved translation. So that's what we decided to add to the workflow and bundle that within the same API call. Um, so we make use of LLMs with proper prompting, and we see that if we do that well, that you get an additional 30%, over the threshold. So in total, an 80% almost saving compared to the current sort of human post editing, MT post editing process. No, so why combine the two? It just makes sense, and it's what other providers will do, and that's what customers need. So and we were able to, as I said, to make this, put this all together under one API call.
Very interesting. Of course, there's so much discussion nowadays about what quality really means these days. In an era where translation quality is estimated by machines rather than assessed by humans, how do we how do we do we even define that? Do the machine and the human each have distinctive roles and functions? And if so, what are they in your opinion?
Oh yeah, definitely. Of course, it's interesting for us at Taos as well because we, as you may remember, people know that we worked many years ago also on DQF, Dynamic Quality Framework, as a more sort of scientific approach to quality, translation quality, because it's been always a very subjective, call, like what is good quality, what isn't, without clear metrics. And that was our first attempt here solving this industry problem, like how do you get a more objective metrics-based measurement in place? And we called it dynamic because there are different sort of levels of quality required for different use cases and different workflows and what have you. Now, this is the first time with the new technology of quality estimation that you can really standardize and make it machine-driven sort of assessment of quality. Um, but it's still just a machine call, and there is definitely a need for humans, to bring in the nuance and the stylistic and sort of the more personal touch to content. So it's just an help. It's a fantastic help to scale up content operations to produce a massive amount of content in less time and with less resources. But for the higher value content, the machines cannot help, where you want to sort of really get a personal touch and stylistic kind of improvement of the output. So there is definitely a role for both, very distinctive.
Yeah, and you alluded already to the cost savings and the standard benefits that this new QA AP system has. Are there any additional benefits beyond efficiency gains and cost savings that you could highlight?
Yes, I think so. We're getting that feedback from our customers, from our users. In some respect, this is really again sort of a real rupture in the evolution of our industry. This is, you could call it sort of a translation quality revolution here, because we can measure everything. We're getting data logs on every piece of content that's taken through the quality estimation scoring. And that in itself is helping users to build up sort of dashboards, populate dashboards with scores on every segment, on every piece of content, which in turn then start to serve as as a source of business intelligence. You can get insights in, well, different engines that are being used. What is the level of output from the different engines for the different types of content, for different languages, for different domains? Everything is stored in the back end, and that will help, for instance, also project managers to better assess the cost of future projects. So in many different ways, we're now getting an objective way of measuring multilingual content, the production of multilingual content, getting insight in the cost and the performance and what have you.
Yeah, do you think there's the possibility also maybe for quality metrics to evolve from away from just linguistic accuracy towards usability or user experience type of analyses based on the data that you have?
I don't know if the QE scores that we're collecting will actually say much about usability. There is probably sort of additional tools that people can think about, but this is not directly linked to the QE scores. I don't think so.
Yeah, and how does Epic learn what quality means for a specific client, a domain, tone, or voice? Is there a specific methodology that you can highlight there?
Well, so Epic comes with generic models. Our platform already works out of the box on 100 plus languages. But then every customer, of course, have their own sort of style. They would call it style sheets in the past, glossaries, translation memories with preferential translations and what have you. So this is all additional data that we can take to train custom models. And our NLP team will then also generate their own kind of data. Very often they have to generate negative data, so negative examples like this is wrong translation. So all of these kind of small differentiators have to be built into the training data, but that's how we tune models to very specific use cases. We also now start working with users who represent, who are specialized in a very special domain or in a particular language. Take for instance French Canadian, which is different from European French, if you like. So how do you get these small grammar changes, terminology changes reflected in the model? So for these cases, we train specific models.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what it means for Crowdin and the agile localization world, of course, because we're now turning continuous localization a bit into a continuous learning system. It looks like. How does this integration help localization teams go beyond productivity and start optimizing quality continuously, you think?
Well, first of all, we're very, very happy that we have the integration in Crowdin, of course. As I started saying, the TAUS Epic really stands out because it's a dedicated technology. It's not a feature in a platform. So that means that we can really specialize and make sure that our models work better than others, that we outperform other offerings in the market. But it also means that, we're dependent on companies like Crowdin to do a good integration, because most users out there use a bigger platform to manage all of their projects, their translation projects, TMSs, content management systems, or other kind of platforms. So we need them to integrate our technology in their platform. And Crowdin did this very well. This means that Crowdin users can, in the interface, and I must admit I don't know exactly how it works in Crowdin, but typically what the end users, the customers, like is then that all the segments that are over a certain threshold, over the QE score, they need to be auto-approved. So they better be locked, that nobody can touch that. That's how you realize the savings. Another big advantage, of course, is if you do get, I talked about this dashboard to get business intelligence on all of your past performance, and so that you can plan your future project better. That's typically something that a TMS like Crowdin can add as an additional sort of value into the platform. So I suspect that all of that is available for Crowdin users.
Yeah. Historically, quality has been viewed as a cost, not a source of value. How does Epic change that equation? And can quality estimation data become a business intelligent asset rather than just a linguistic metric, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's. I think it becomes like a standard. I mean, over time. I mean, it's interesting. This same Gartner report that I mentioned that came out last September, uh, uh, states that currently there is a kind of a penetration in the market of about 1%. Maybe by now we're at 2 or 3%. It's a few months old, but they also predict that by 2027, every translation operator in the world will have some form of QE implemented. I think it becomes part of the infrastructure, and it's in that sense, it's becoming sort of, yeah, a standard feature everyone needs to keep track of all their sort of global content production. Um, and in that sense, it's going to be so if invaluable. I mean, everybody needs it to manage, and the cost becomes an infrastructure cost. It's not so much of a cost of translation anymore.
Yeah. How can localization teams use Epic Insights to make more data-driven vendor and workflow decisions? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, well, that goes back to what I just said. If you get all these data points, and you can start populating your dashboard with that, then you get deeper insights into the cost of production, into the performance by languages, by domains, and all of that will help you to predict your better your future business, to budget your future business. So that's kind of an obvious additional value that we build up over time as we get more and more data points um, aggregated.
Yeah. One of the things that I really liked at the TAUS conference, I might as well tell you right now since we're here, is how uh, there's really a much more positive outlook. I think this year, and people are focusing on the opportunities that this new technological landscape bring to the localization industry. In what ways does automation shift the economics of localization from reactive to proactive management?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the very core of what I call this translation quality measurement revolution. It's the shift from reactive, subjective to proactive and objective, which leads to that business intelligence. And yes, there is more understanding, more awareness that this kind of really shift is happening, and that you got to be part of that. You got to start using that. There's a lot of talk at our conference and other conferences everywhere about AI and how it helps to do magic stuff like personalization and workflow orchestration and what have you. But if and since the topic of this podcast is quality estimation, and I think this is the low hanging fruit. You have to, before you get to all this magic AI new stuff and become like what people say, also, why do we translate? We can just generate multilingual content in the original languages, in lots of different languages. Well, all fantastic, but we're moving from translation as a still a big cost factor to near zero marginal cost reality in the economic sense. In order to do that, this QE and AP is the low hanging fruit. You have to do that first to get a much more cost efficient operation, and then on the basis of that, you can start doing the magic, of personalized content and building AI, new AI apps into your platform to do fantastic new stuff. But this is sort of efficiency improvement using AI that everybody needs to do first, if you ask me.
Yeah. We've had a lot of nervous linguists over the last couple of years as well. A lot of talk around what the new role of the translator is going to be. I think people getting a little bit reassured that we're not just eliminating them. How do you see the role of linguists evolving in an epic-driven workflow?
Well, yeah, let's be honest. It's tough. It's a big change. And what everybody says, and I think I would agree to that, is that the volume of content will grow, and yeah, only sort of the more challenging content, from a quality perspective, from indeed, let's say, personalization, stylistic kind of challenges, that remains to be done by the humans. But also, I think a lot of translators, post editors these days will be looking out for other jobs and other opportunities. Maybe in the data driven sort of, the model training. We have some people in our team who did this sort of career change, doing additional education in NLP or computational linguistics. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the truth. It's a big change in the industry, in the landscape. Can't hide that.
Right. Is there maybe an opportunity to venture into data validation a bit more, you think, for linguists?
Yeah, you see this absolutely. I think there's on a more sort of a bigger picture or more abstract level, there's definitely a big role for specialized OSPs and the linguists they employ to build the best models and to sort of nurture those models and partner with AI companies like ourselves. We were starting this kind of partner program where we say, well, we have, as I said, we have generic QE models that do a pretty good job on a language. Take whatever French, Lithuanian, or any language. But when you start zooming in on pharmaceutical, on legal, on you name it, in a finer granular level, we're going to need sort of subject matter experts, linguists who know that field and that language, partnering with the specialists in those fields to tune models for that particular purpose. And we can go indeed on a more specialized level, and in that sense, train custom models for one customer, but also for categories of customers, so to say. And I think that's creating an interesting sort of new perspective for professional linguists, for professional agencies. With that, sort of, there's, if you like, more value for smaller specialized LSPs than for the generic super agencies who know a lot about very many different fields. So that's a path that I think is interesting for the industry. And that's how I see specialized players in the localization industry serving as, if you like, AI service integrators between the big tech AI labs and the end customers. Um, you know, Creating some kind of a hybrid with an AI model to perform that high quality service.
Yeah, and how can individual translators use the Epic feedback loop to improve their own productivity and accuracy, you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have we created an Epic savings calculator on our website. So anybody who would like to try, when we do this, it really already brings savings for small agencies and maybe even for individual translators. So when you talk about professional linguist, professional translator has his own practice, yeah, he or she could also use Epic maybe through MemoQ, through Crowdin, through whatever platform they're using, or directly, and realize savings that they can immediately benefit from.
Yeah. Maybe a couple of questions about the TAUS Epic Partner Program in parting. How do you see the market for QE evolving and growing in the coming months and years, Jaap?
Well, if we believe Gartner's prediction, then we expect a very stormy kind of couple of years ahead of us, because as I said, there are not so many. Only two actually at the moment, pure play providers of quality estimation. We expect rapid growth for our offering. What we'd like to do is partner up with specialized providers in this industry to tune models for very specific use cases, specific industries. We have one such partnership just launching now for, as I alluded to, for French Canadian. But we could do a model for legal, for automotive, for pharmaceutical, or for Arabic language, which is of course another big language in high demand, and with all its different dialects, there's work to be done to make QE, quality estimation, work optimal for such very specialized locales or domains. And we see a very fast and efficient, effective way to the market, doing this in partnership with the specialists. So yeah, if somebody listens here to this podcast, we invite specialized language service providers to get in touch with us and to work together with us.
And I can confirm the interest in the Arabic field, so to speak. I just returned from Saudi Arabia earlier this week. I was at the 5th International Translation Forum there, and there's lots of interest in our industry in Saudi. Maybe one last soft question, a really easy one, imparting. Yeah, what is the role of the LSP in this market going forward? Give us your assessment of how you see that changing role.
Oh, well, I just elaborate a little bit on this in direct relation to what we do. We see specialized agencies, OSPs, really taking an important role because they know their field, they know the subjects, they know the terminology and the sensitivities from a language perspective in those markets. So they have a big role to play there. Um, when you take a very sort of different look at how the translation process changes now with lots of AI thrown into the workflow, they still know the quality better than anybody else, but they have to package it differently, this into a new type of service and pricing, what have you. But of course, LSPs, beyond the topic of this podcast, quality estimation, automatic post editing, have can also have aspirations to um, kind of diverge into other sectors and become specialists in customer support and digital marketing. Because on the bigger scale, what I predicted in the TAUS think tank days already, sort of we're in the middle actually now of what we call the convergence era. Convergence means, that's where innovation happens. That's when you see synergies between your core competency, product, service, whatever it is, with something completely outside your industry. And that's basically how a phone became a camera, a calculator, and a navigator, and everything else. That's convergence, right? And that's the same with translation. Translation is now embedded, on every website and every app. It's become a feature. But for service bureaus, LSPs, there is a similar sort of opportunity to converge into other industries and then become global content providers or lang ops companies. We like to say AI service integrators, because the big tech and AI companies put out all these great models, but they don't know if they will be working okay for every application. So you need service companies, and LSPs are very well positioned to move into that void, if you like, to make sure that these models actually deliver the quality that the end users need.
Jaap, you've been very, very generous with your time. It's always a pleasure talking to you and learning from you. It's been a true honor this morning. I wish you a wonderful afternoon in the Netherlands and a beautiful weekend. And I hope to talk to you soon again and learn more from you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowdin. We hope you found it as insightful as we did. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to learn more about how leading companies are managing their multilingual content efficiently, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Thank you for tuning in. For more resources on how to streamline your localization process, visit crowdin.com. See you next time.